without repeating too much of what he said, he does have an oligoastrocytoma grade 3. He was originally diagnosed with the 2 and everything was fine, and it wasn't until, like he said, he had this unexpected grand mal seizure. And then we learned a lot. His doctor kept telling him, well, when you come back in 6 weeks, we'll talk about your driving. No one ever said to us 6 months or 12 months. So he kept going in every 6 months thinking every 6 weeks, thinking, I'm going to get the okay to drive. And he got so mad at me like the 3rd time we went, and we're getting ready to leave, and it wasn't brought up. And I said to the doctor, oh, by the way, what about his driving? And he said, next visit, we'll talk about it. We went home and had such an argument. And that's when he threatened to kill himself, and he literally did say it. So, it was very upsetting because I so felt for him. I understand he was losing his independence, and he was such a independent person. He was our driver. We had adult children that hated to drive, if you could believe it, teenage kids who didn't want to drive. So he was our driver. He drove us everywhere. I didn't care to drive, so I would just, give him a break or go somewhere when I had to go. And then, like he said, in September of that year, 2002, all of a sudden he started having focal seizures. And it was the first time we experienced seizures was in that year. And he had had this brain tumor for 9 years, and we had never seen a seizure. And now we found out that this type of tumor, because it's slow growing, it's very common to have these focal seizures. And he started having them. Then he went in for surgery, came out of surgery, started chemo and radiation, and he had uncontrolled seizures, ended up in the hospital. And now they put him on all kinds of medication. So, of course, when he started having the focal seizures, we were like devastated. It was a weekend. We're going on the internet, and we're like, well, if people with epilepsy could deal with seizures, and I know people with epilepsy that drive, maybe eventually you'll learn to. Never thinking he would never drive again. So at this point, he hasn't driven. So as he said, he's almost an 18-year brain tumor survivor, and the last 10 years he has not driven. All right, and it's been a challenge. Some of the challenges, like he said, is he doesn't like to ask people. I've even snuck behind his back and said to my friend, hey, if you're going up to the store, just give George a call. Hey, you want to go up to the Home Depot? I'm going. He figured me out, and he got mad at me for that. And it's silly because, like he says, what we did, we lived in Cream Ridge, which is the forgotten corner of Monmouth County. And let me tell you, to get services out there was hard enough. I mean, we got him physical therapy, but we could not find any kind of transportation help. All right, and the problem was some of our doctors were in Mercer County, some of our doctors were in Monmouth County, and we're like on the corner of Ocean, Monmouth, and Mercer. So after how many years? I think it was 3 years. We finally said we can't do this anymore, and we moved. We moved into Mercer County. And Hamilton is fantastic because you're right there with everything, and they have great transportation and so forth. We moved literally a mile from a shopping center. So as he said, we got so close to shopping and transportation, and there's buses, and he could take buses, although he hasn't done it. He could take a bus and go somewhere, which I'll be nervous wreck when he does. But it is very hard, and I now work full-time. I didn't when he first got sick. I was very fortunate working for my brother. I took time off and was able to be there and take him for his doctors. But once I went back to work, now I've got to make the doctor appointments around my work schedule without missing too much work. I've got to come home, and then he wants to go somewhere. I'm exhausted. All these issues come up as the caregiver. I mean, you've got a lot more on you. And I hated to drive. Didn't I say that? Now I love to drive. I actually drive everywhere. We drove down all over the country, actually. One of the things I do, because I know he can get so depressed and he becomes such a homebody, is I force him to go out. I'll make plans. We're going to the Poconos. We're going to see, now we got the grandbabies, but we go see the grandbabies. And they lived almost 2 hours away, so it gets him out of the house. God bless him. We have his 87-year-old mother living with us, and she will take him. God bless him. Because I wouldn't drive with her. But, you know, it's the convenience. He knows that if he just needs to run up to the store, it's very difficult for him to walk. Those of you who don't know George, when we started, well, I shouldn't say started, when he had his brain surgery, he actually was in a wheelchair. So he was in a wheelchair 10 years ago. 5 years ago, when we moved to our adult community, he was in a wheelchair. And if any of you saw him today, he walked in here, and he walks in here. He does have deficits on the right side, and that's one of the reasons I was asking some of those pedal questions, because I know that. But, you know, so he can't just walk to the store. So, and then the nice part is living in an adult community, as most of these people are starting to retire, now we have more friends who are available to take him out and get him out of the house also. So, you know, friends helped us a lot in the beginning, and then we kind of start feeling bad about it and so forth. But I've got to tell you, the one thing I'll never forget, a social worker said to us, if you did all the giving, then how would others get to heaven if you don't let them receive? How can if you don't receive? And usually when you're a giver, it's so hard to receive. But you have to remember, somebody else has to help too. So, thank you.